Have you ever felt stuck in a repetitive pattern in your parenting? Stuck in a situation where you keep trying the same things over and over again, even though you know they're not working, but you don't really know what else to do. So you keep trying to, for example, pressure your child into cooperating when they're not, and that causes them to put up a wall of refusal. And it's frustrating and exhausting for everyone. So that's what I want to talk about today. Before we jump into that topic, I just want to address the Martian in the room, and by that I mean this beautiful headset. I usually record with a standing microphone, but I'm in a different space today. And I had a choice between making it sound like I was in a big warehouse or wearing this gorgeous headset. So I'm taking one for the team. So, back to what can we do about those repetitive, exhausting cycles? I remember back in the day with my son, I used to try to encourage him to do things, and encourage him was my word. Probably from his side of it, he experienced it as force. And that created a dynamic where he would shut down or melt down, and then I would feel guilty for having forced him. And then he would push back more, and then I would feel defeated, like it was never going to change. And in addition to getting more tools, I wanted to highlight another factor, another big shift that I made that really helped me emerge from this pattern. And that is, I realized that I was parenting from what I thought was my comfort zone. And what I realized with the help of a coach who helped me at the time was what she said was actually, it's not really a comfort zone because it's really not all that comfortable. It's a familiar zone. And as long as you're going to stay in the familiar zone, you're going to get the same outcome. Here's an example of what I mean by parenting in the comfort or familiar zone. I worked with a mom whose daughter needed constant support for her sensory and emotional regulation. And the mom would accommodate everything from adjusting the environment to micromanaging her daughter's activities, all to avoid a meltdown. Because she knew that even though she herself was heading toward burnout, she felt like she had no choice. Her daughter always seemed to need her help, and if she didn't accommodate, the meltdowns were brutal. But here's the thing, her child's needs weren't going to magically lessen overnight, and no amount of recognizing her own frustration was going to solve that on its own. She was stuck in that cycle of supporting her daughter to the point where she was burnt out, the meltdowns came anyway, and she didn't know how to get out. So here's how we worked on shifting the dynamic. The first thing we did was to get mom to realize that the whole world wouldn't fall apart if her daughter had a meltdown. We know that because her daughter had plenty of meltdowns and the world didn't fall apart. So it was about getting mom to interrupt her own pattern of behavior in the dynamic with her daughter. We're getting her to realize that there were moments where she could say to herself, what if I step back in this moment? What would happen? Not to do it recklessly, not to cause the meltdowns, but to see were there like micro spots where she could just give herself a moment. I know this sounds easier said than done because sometimes the fear of an oncoming meltdown is huge. But if we don't stop and change our patterns, how can we expect our children to change theirs? We have to be the leader of change. So here's what we did with this mom. This is how we started to make that change for her. So we started small, and instead of having her jump in at the initial sign of distress, we worked on helping her daughter build up her ability to manage some frustration in an activity by introducing very small, controlled challenges, such as letting her wait an extra minute for her after school snack, or letting her struggle with making the bed imperfectly before mom stepped in to fix everything perfectly. These micro changes were not only designed to help the daughter start to build her frustration tolerance, but also to help mom build her own tolerance of the fear of what would happen if she didn't intervene immediately. Because those two things are related. If she steps in immediately, she's not creating any space for her child to build her frustration tolerance. So the dynamic is feeding the problem. What we were really doing was helping the mom redefine what support and success looked like for her. Previously, she had been operating on the assumption that she had to rush to intervene at any moment when something could go wrong. But we helped her change that dynamic by slowly introducing those little challenges in increments that her daughter could tolerate, so that she could help her daughter build the skill, but also, really importantly, help mom not feel that incredible tension in the instant that something seemed like it could possibly go wrong. Over time, this helped both of them reduce the cycle of meltdowns and burnout. Obviously, there were a lot of things that this parent worked on to help her daughter, but the main point I want you to take from this video is that sometimes when we feel stuck, we feel like it's external things, our child's challenges, their behavior, that is keeping us stuck. But what I want you to know is that you have more power than you realize to step in and change that dynamic by taking the lead and taking the first step. It doesn't mean we have to be perfect. It doesn't mean we're going to avoid all the meltdowns, but realistically, we're not avoiding them all now anyway. It just means that we have the ability to guide our children out of those repetitive dynamics by initiating those small and consistent changes ourselves. So, next time you feel stuck and falling into the same routines, ask yourself, am I parenting from my comfort zone? Or, as I think it's more accurately called, my familiar zone? We know that real progress comes from making small shifts. So stepping just outside that familiar zone might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's where all of the growth happens. And the beauty of it, once you take that first step, you're showing your child that change is possible. You are leading by example. If you want more tips on getting unstuck, on leading by example, and all the parenting things, I hope you'll follow me here.